Hi everyone, I'm Angela from Taitra, your host for today. Welcome to the Taiwan Trade Show's webinar for TAIPEICYCLE. In the beginning, let's welcome the organizer of TAIPEICYCLE Show, Director of Taitra, Ms. Amelia Shi, to open today's session with a few words.
Hi everyone, I'm Amelia, Director of Exhibition Department at Taitra. Welcome to watch our TTS webinar on the EU cycling industry and TAIPEICYCLE Show. For decades, Taiwan has been well known as the global R&D and manufacturing powerhouse of middle to high-end bicycles. With the complete supply chain and cluster on this island, along with its globalization, Taiwan is always capable of taking quick response to global market demands. Over 90% of bicycle productions in Taiwan are shipped to export markets. The market share of bicycles imported from Taiwan in 58 countries ranked top 3 in 2018. In 2019, Taiwan bicycle export continued to show positive progress, especially for e-bikes, with over 100% growth. The EU and the United States remain the major cycling markets for made-in-Taiwan exports, consisting of 81% of the total sales in 2019. For e-bikes, these two markets represent 90% of the total sales. In first quarter 2020, the export value of e-bikes surpassed that of traditional bicycles for the first time, declaring the coming of age for the e-bike generation. Taiwan, with its cutting-edge ICT technology sector, continues to lead development in the creation and production of smarter connected products and support the further development of the cycling industry. To showcase the global innovation and support the export of high-end bicycles made in Taiwan, Taitra has been organizing TAIPEICYCLE Show since 1988. TAIPEICYCLE Show is the second biggest cycling trade show in the world and an influential market leader in the Asian-Pacific region. It is also one of the most important annual events for industry players to network and get business done together. To evolve with the global trends of AIoT technology and sustainability, TAIPEICYCLE Show will not only showcase the traditional bikes such as mountain bike, road bikes, city bikes, racing bike, but also highlight the e-bikes and connected bikes. The show has been transforming from supply chain show to cycling lifestyle and cycling culture show. New elements like cycling tourism, cycling fashion, test rides, cycling workshops will be added to enrich its content. In 2020, due to the impact of COVID-19, globally, most on-site events have been cancelled or postponed. As part of response to COVID-19, Taitra is putting on a series of online integrated services to connect our exhibitors and international visitors, including 2-dimension and VR online exhibitions, online pre-show sourcing meetings, online new product launches, international webinars, and TTS Insights online series. The EU is a very well-developed and mature cycling market. It is also the biggest export region for Taiwan cycling products, accounting for 45% of complete bikes and nearly 70% of e-bikes during first quarter 2020. It is our privilege today to have invited two significant industry experts from the EU region to share their insights. Our first speaker at today's webinar is Manuel Marsilio, the General Manager of CONEBI, the Confederation of the European Bicycle Industry, and also currently a representative of the newly founded WBIA, World Bicycle Industry Association. Today, he will share his insights about the opportunities for Asian, in particular Taiwanese manufacturers under COVID-19 market conditions. Our second speaker will be the Editor-in-Chief of BIKEEUROPE, Mr. Jan-Willem van Schaik, BIKEUROPE is one of the leading B2B journals within the global bicycle industry. Mr. Van Schaik has been closely involved in the brand's transition from print to a digital-first news proposition. It is our great pleasure to have Mr. Van Schaik today to present an update on the current market situation in Europe and give an outlook on the post-COVID-19 era. I hope you enjoy their presentation as much as I do. On behalf of Taitra, the organizer of Taipei Cycle Show, I look forward to seeing you soon in next March in Taiwan. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Manuel Marsilio and I'm the General Manager of CONEBI. The title of today's presentation is COVID-19 Impact on Sales, Projections and Opportunities in a Changing Scenario. I would like to thank Taitra for the invitation to be one of the lecturers of this special 2020 Taipei Cycle Forum in this new format. Through this video, like I've just mentioned, I'm going to briefly share with you information, projections and thoughts about the cycling ecosystem in Europe. CONEBI, which stands for Confederation of the European Bicycle Industry, represents the interests of the bike, e-bike, parts and accessories industries in Europe. We're talking about 900 companies providing 110,000 jobs and investing more than €1 billion every year in research, innovation, new facilities and machineries. Moreover, when it comes to the retailing sector, there are in Europe about 50,000 bike and e-bike dealers with around 150,000 retailing jobs. So as we all know, COVID-19 has had a huge impact on many aspects, from health to society, from mobility to the economy, from industrial processes to supply chains. Undoubtedly, there is a strong link between market sales and the aspects that have been highlighted. Let's briefly analyze them. With regard to public health, several studies have discovered that long-term exposure to air pollution may be one of the most important contributors to fatality caused by the COVID-19 virus around the world. One of them looked at COVID-19 fatalities in 4 of the countries that have been hit the hardest by the virus: Italy, Spain, France, and Germany. It reached the result that 78% of deaths had occurred in just 5 regions between northern Italy and Spain. These regions, the report notes, have the highest concentrations of nitrogen dioxide, a pollutant that is extremely harmful to human respiratory systems. Another study by Harvard University has generated similar findings. Even a small increase in long-term exposure to air pollution can have a significant effect on the severity of COVID-19 symptoms. It posits that lowering the average amount of airborne particulate matter by just 1 microgram over the past 20 years could have led now to 250 fewer deaths from the disease. So note that in Europe, road transport is responsible for more than 70% of all transport emissions. We've been living in a car-centric culture that until the COVID-19 outbreak had not started to consider its carbon footprint and tackle all the unsustainable elements that it brings with itself. Air pollution and COVID-19 are linked to each other, and with proofs of that. A solution is ready: cycling. Cycling can be the champion of this new era where it will not be possible to justify anymore all the pollution spread through cars' exhaust pipes. Cycling can make people healthier and live longer, we know it, and cut public health costs. Studies have shown that the impact of even relatively modest cycling has almost miraculous health dividends. The health benefits of cycling amount to more than 190 billion euro every year. With regard to the society, the environment, the mobility patterns, and the changes linked to COVID-19, an overall growing sentiment of sustainability among the population with regard to climate change and the respect for the environment is rising. Such kind of sentiment is at the heart of the recently announced European Green Deal, the European Union's strategy to implement the United Nations Agenda on Sustainable Development Goals. The last 2 decades included 18 of the warmest years on record in Europe. The trend is clear: immediate and decisive climate action is essential. The impact of global warming is transforming our environment, increasing the frequency and intensity of extreme weather events. Europe experienced extreme heat waves in 4 of the last 5 years. Large parts of Europe suffered from severe droughts, while flood events have particularly affected Central and Eastern Europe in recent years, causing massive devastation. Once again, bicycles and e-bikes totally fit within the picture of the fight against climate change and for a better environment. CONEBI is in contact with the European legislators, asking to support financially and politically the full potential of cycling. It is very promising to see that cities are turning their streets over to cyclists and pedestrians. New temporary bike lanes are popping up. For example, in Berlin, several streets have new wide bike lanes that are created from space generally intended for motorized vehicles. Budapest city officials just planned a cycling network on main roads, and the UK government is expected to unveil big investment in cycle lanes to encourage commuters to ride to work instead of using public transport. In the capital of Europe, Brussels, the entire historical city center will be a 20 kilometers an hour zone with priority for pedestrians and cyclists. The prioritization concept in the urban commuting framework is therefore gaining traction during this very difficult moment due to COVID-19. Paris and Madrid are preparing a long-term strategy to support bicycles as the first means of transportation after the removal of the lockdown measures. The environmentalist Pierre Cern, former transport vice president for the Ile-de-France region, in a recent article said, "In May we could see entire boulevards where motor vehicles would be provisionally banned in favor of bicycles." The main objective is to secure that the temporary decisions for cycling will become definitive. Local authorities and governments have now the chance to change history and make their cities eventually a place for people. Public transportation is not going to be the same for quite some time. Social distancing will be the rule, and the mobility needs of millions of people will be channeled into means of transportation that allow for more safety. The truth is that sales in the last 2 weeks are booming. Either online or in shops, sales have increased enormously. In some cases, sales in May might even counterbalance the losses of sales that we unfortunately saw in April. And what about the tourism segment? Before the COVID-19 outbreak, the bike tourism was an industry valued 44 billion euros a year, out of which 9 billion euros specifically related to cycle holidays. Taking into consideration that after the COVID-19 outbreak, local tourism will gain a considerable momentum, I'm confident that the numbers will soon reach the ones of the pre-COVID-19 context. From the economic and industrial standpoints, COVID-19 has had a very big impact, even if we can notice differences among European countries. In some of them, where production facilities and retailers were fully closed in the last 2 months due to the confinement measures, a turnover loss of 30 to 40% took place. Nevertheless, the very good news is that factories are reopening or increasing their capacity, and quite a lot of European governments are strongly incentivizing bicycle sales. In Italy, the Ministry of Environment is considering to free up 125 million euro to promote cycling and will give 500 euro as a purchase bonus to citizens that live in cities to buy either bicycles or e-bikes. In France, the government has foreseen 20 million euro fund to foster the cycling practice, including a 50 euro voucher for repairing bicycles. While in UK, the Transport Secretary announced a £2 billion package to put cycling and walking at the heart of Britain's post-coronavirus transportation plan. The idea is to reduce crowding on public transport and gridlock on roads. We're just at the beginning, and more initiatives will pop up. For the bicycle industry, it will be important to continue working on innovation. I'm thinking of the good examples of materials technology from carbon fiber to titanium, graphene and stainless steel. And e-bikes, which are nowadays the most sold electric vehicle on the European market with 3.4 million units sold in 2019 and sales forecast before COVID-19 of potentially 4.5 million units in 2020. E-bikes are definitely transforming the way people conceive mobility. Just to give an example, in 2019 at European level, sales of battery electric cars amounted to just 285,000 units. Very little numbers in comparison with e-bike sales. There is substantial evidence that shows e-bike riders are switching from motorized vehicles and not from traditional cycling or walking. Recapping, bike shops are reopening all over Europe. Governments and city authorities are working on new promising cycling infrastructure to support mobility on two wheels. Fiscal incentives and purchase bonuses are being granted while factories are going back to production. All these signals are very positive. In this overall context, the opportunities for Asian manufacturers will probably be quite big. A likely remarkable growth of the European demand for bicycles, e-bikes and components will have positive effects for the Taiwanese industry and its European sales. With an eye on China, moreover, the investments for production in Europe, noting the actual anti-dumping measures, will benefit the supply chain of components for the European bicycle makers. The value of Chinese components has increased on a yearly basis, reaching more than 1.2 billion euros in 2018. To conclude, I'm very glad to be involved as well in the World Bicycle Industry Association, WBA, and having the chance to be in regular contact with Taiwan Bicycle Association and all the other industry bodies from all over the world, which is helping to face all together the effects of COVID-19. The cycling sector has the unique chance to mark the history of a new mobility revolution, and we'll all have to do our best to make it happen. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome on this Taiwan Trade Show webinar 2020 again. On global markets, trends and business opportunities under the COVID-19 pandemic. 2019 began very positive for the bicycle industry. Sales in production in 2019 reached record levels. Factories in Europe were booked to the limit. The outlook for this year was very optimistic. In sales, the start was good, thanks to another mild winter, until COVID arrived in Europe. I will take you to the latest production and sales trends. Next slide, please. In January, I could still note that the e-bike triggered an investment boom in Europe. Nearly all existing factories in Europe were investing. They transformed their production lines from bicycles to e-bikes, and they all anticipated on a growing demand. Last winter, e-bike brands had even difficulties to secure their supply chain. These difficulties, together with the anti-dumping duties on China-made e-bikes, and in combination with the Trump tariffs, made many decide to reshore production to Europe. After all, moving an e-bike assembly from one country to another to follow the most favorable export conditions is much more complex than for bicycles. Brands will now choose the best location for the longer term. The European Bicycle Manufacturers Association expected the e-bike assembly in Europe to quadruple up to 2025. Last year, e-bike assembly in Europe already doubled to an estimated 2.4 million units. That number is expected to expand to 8 million units annually. I want to highlight a series of developments which lead to the latest production trends. First of all, online sales, which force close to market and a more flexible production. The higher valued e-bikes also entail limitations in working capital and a lower inventories and reduction of lead times. We also see more and more robotization to improve product quality, speed in production, and to reduce labor costs. Brands who used to outsource their production now open their own assembly. Their volumes have become too high for one subcontractor. This means they have to subdivide orders among a range of assemblers. And as a result, they lose flexibility and it makes quality control even more complex. In Europe, new factories don't specifically select locations with component manufacturers in the near vicinity, except for frames and rims due to logistics. Factory constructions are currently taking place in Germany, in Portugal, in Italy, in Hungary, and in Bulgaria. But a similar trend was shown in Taiwan. Taiwan Bicycle Association Chairman and Merida President Michael Cheng said last November, "Our industry is now fully focused on e-bike engineering." He added that e-bikes require an all-new approach to production, distribution, and marketing. And Taiwan is said to be ready for that. It is proven by the numbers. The number of e-bikes Taiwan shipped to Europe increased by 130% last year. In 2018, Taiwan shipped 192,000 units, and this was up to more than 440,000 units in 2019. A growing number of Taiwanese companies opened subsidiaries in Europe to benefit from the e-bike boom. The process of opening offices close to the market and reshore production to Europe has been going on for some years now. COVID-19 could speed up this process. Under the current conditions, it gets increasingly important to respond to the disrupted market changes as quickly as possible. Shorter supply chains in Europe could be one of the options. However, reshoring is not the only solution. Last week, the chairman of the European Parliament Trade Committee warned about the reshoring. I quote, "We have to really look at the criteria before deciding which supply chains we want to reshore. There are more possibilities to make supply chains more robust, besides pure reshoring, such as diversification. Reshoring is not a solution as such. It's not realistic to bring all production back to Europe, but hoping we can still export." End of quote. He also pushed for legislation for sustainable and crisis-resistant value chain. Next slide, please. The sales results on the first quarter of this year, published by Shimano last week, do show a significant trend in the business. After promising sales in Europe and North America to mid-March, sales stagnated. Between mid-March and the end of the same month, sales dropped. Over the first quarter, Shimano reported a decline in sales of 15%. It was the first and foremost indication of the impact of COVID-19 on the e-bike and bicycle industry. Shimano also withdrew its financial forecast and gave mid-February this year. The Japanese company also refrained from giving any market outlook for the next months. At the end of April, Shimano reported that, and I quote, "The extent of the impact remains uncertain. It is difficult for us to reasonably calculate a business performance forecast at this time." End of quote. The Shimano results all point at declining bicycle sales. In Europe's largest economy, in Germany, the order intake for all industries slumped drastically in the past months. The country's economy ministry blamed this on the global economic shock of the COVID-19 pandemic. On May 6, the ministry warned that the situation will even worsen. Despite the painful drop in sales during the COVID-19 pandemic, the German bicycle industry tempered this negative sentiment. According to the spokesman for the German Two-Wheeler Industry Association, ZDV, David Eisenberger, I quote, "The season is still long, and we hope, despite strong losses, to limit the damage as much as possible." This is what the spokesman said to the German press agency DPA. To my surprise, the Dynamo Retail Organization in the Netherlands did voice a very positive sound on bicycle sales. Representing some 800 affiliated retailers in the Netherlands, in Germany, and in Belgium, Dynamo Retail reported an increase in sales in both April and in the period January until April 30. The shops who are member of this group increased their turnover by 5.8% last April. In the Netherlands, bicycle shops have never closed completely during the partly lockdown. In Germany and Belgium, they did. For sure, many retailers have compensated their shop sales by online sales. And a lot of brands have even opted for the home delivery. They've quickly started omni-channel distribution together with their dealers. But still, it's remarkable to see an increase in turnover. Whether this is an indication for other markets in Europe is still difficult to say at the moment. Next slide, please. On the short term, cycling is quickly gaining popularity in Europe's cities. City governments take the opportunity to change people's behavior. They want more people to cycle instead of driving their car. By opening up pop-up cycleways quickly, they want at least offer the infrastructure. A long list of cities in Europe, but also on other continents, are now investing millions in the promotion of cycling. Whether citizens pick up the suggestions is still open. If they do, it will have a major impact on bicycle sales. Next slide, please. Well, this was the end of my presentation. For the latest developments on the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, check our special COVID-19 page on the website. Of course, you could also subscribe to our newsletter. I hope to see you again soon, and certainly at the Taipei Cycle Show next March.
Thank you for sharing. That's all for today's webinar. I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. Our next Taipei Cycle Show will be held from March 3rd to 6th, 2021. We look forward to seeing you in Taipei next year. Thank you for joining us today. Please stay tuned for more industry coverages.